So welcome to our lesson 9C. In the next preview assignment in the next class, you will need to be able to compute measures of central tendency using a technology and informally determine whether bivariate data, like a bicycle, is either dependent or independent. So we're going to start with computing mean and median, which are measures of central tendency. And you learned how to compute the mean of a data set in a previous lesson, and we learned how to compute the median in a previous lesson. It is often easier to use technology, but the big deal is technology only does what we tell it to do, so we've got to always be thinking reasonableness. Are our answers really reasonable to what we're seeing on our technology? So question number 1 begins asking us to download the spreadsheet. I've loaded the spreadsheet for you in D2L, and it is under Excel spreadsheets. And this is the label. This is what it's talking about. And then it's going to ask us some questions. You need to hit pause, go get the spreadsheet, and answer some of these questions before you come back and work through this with me. But I do want to point out one thing before you go. There are details on your page talking about how to manipulate the data in Excel numbers or in Google Sheets. I've got the spreadsheet. I downloaded it from D2L. And the first question says, what's the highest price? And then the second question says, what's the lowest price? And since I have technology, I'm going to go ahead and use it to my advantage, because scanning to see the highest and lowest, I could miss whatever they are. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight both columns. I'm going to go up here to the top right where it says sort and filter, but I want to do a custom sort. And specifically, I want to sort by the price. So that would be the Toyota Prius price. That's how I want to sort, smallest to largest. And by highlighting everything, it'll take all the numbers on both columns with it. So now that I've sorted, it's easily identifiable, as long as I grabbed all the numbers, that first it says highest. So looking at part A, it asks for the highest. And so the highest price is $28,995. Part B, the lowest price, is $4,000. Part C says using the spreadsheet, calculate the mean. And then Part D says using the spreadsheet, calculate the median. So somewhere, and I usually end up down here, I'm going to start with Part C that says calculate the mean. I have to tell it equals, and mean is an average. And I have to tell it where I'm starting and where I'm ending up. I can type in the cell, or I can click on the cell, and I need to put colon. Uh-oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Go back down here. My colon's there. And I want to end at this cell, parentheses, hit return, and there is my average, $14,871.56. I'm going to go ahead and put beside it over here that this is my average, my mean, and I'm going to go ahead and type here that I'm now going to calculate the median. Equals, and if I start typing in median, it pops up. But again, I have to tell it from where to where. And I'm going to click from here to, oops, that's not what I wanted. From here, colon, and then it gives me another one. I'm doing something wrong on that. And then down here to the bottom of the list. And when I close out my parentheses, it then gives me the median of $16,331. And if you go ahead and look at the next question, part E, it says one way to check reasonableness of your mean and median is to confirm that they are in between the smallest and the largest. And we have around 14,000 and around 16,000. Our largest number is 28,000. Our smallest is 4. So depending on how much is pulling towards whatever our middle is, our numbers are fitting, no matter which way we look at it, our numbers are fitting between the 4,000 and the 28,000. Another part of your upcoming lessons involve bivariate, meaning like a bicycle, variables, and then deciding which piece is going to be independent and which piece is dependent. And so in your in-class activity, there is a great explanation, and it's this. The choice of which variable appears on the horizontal and the vertical. Horizontal, vertical. The choice of which one appears on the horizontal or vertical is based on which variable is thought to be dependent upon the other. The dependent variable should appear on the vertical. So whatever we decide is dependent, it's going to appear on the vertical or our y-axis. And as it continues to say, if you happen to have a measure of time, like years, weeks, months, seconds, as one of those variables, it is most often, not always, but it is most often the independent variable and displayed on the x-axis or the horizontal axis. When analyzing the variables to determine which axis they should be on, keep in mind some comparisons involving the words independent and dependent. Keep asking yourself when you're given examples, which one depends on the other one, and which one can operate independently. Just keep in mind, independent, as we have written up here, independent is going to go on the x-axis, and dependent is going to go on the y-axis. Now we're going to practice identifying independent and dependent variables. If you have not already completed this question 2, you need to go ahead, work on all parts of this by yourself. In other words, hit pause, go do that, and then come back and we can work on these together. We're going to start with part A. I like to look at it even as an XY axis because what's on the X is independent and can stand alone. But what we end up deciding is the dependent for the Y. It depends on what's going on with X. So one way to look at this, will your grade on a test impact your time spent studying, or will the time spent studying impact the grade on a test? And also remember that if we do have an element with time, it probably is the independent variable. So a little bit of thought over here, that if I did call this hours and I studied 1 hour, we think my grade might be here. But if I studied 3 hours, we think I might get a better grade. Or if I study 5 hours, I might get a better grade than that. So in this case, the time spent studying is going to be the independent variable, and the one that depends on the time you spent studying is the dependent variable or the grade on a test. Let's do it again. If you didn't understand the first one and now feel pretty confident, hit pause and then do B and beyond. The age of a car and the value of a car. The age of a car, the value of a car. One of these is independent, one depends on the other. And so the question is, does the age impact the value, or does the value impact the age? And I understand that once cars get older and they become antiques, well, that's still age, so never mind on that example. But I'm going to pick age, and if I'm not real sure, I'm going to play around with it on the graph. If my car is 1 year old, or like at 0, when I buy my car, it's here. But after 1 year, it decreases in price. After 2 years, it decreases again, 3 years. And so my years are independent, however long I own the vehicle. But the value of the car is dependent on how many years I'm owning the car. So the age is independent. The value is going to be dependent. Finishing up with C and D, we're talking here about a pharmaceutical representative's sales and their earned commission. sales and commission. So I like to think of it as my X and Y. Which one depends on the other? Will the sales depend on the commission, or will the commission depend on the sales? And so if I try over here, if I made one sale, I will get this amount of commission, which would go right there. And this might be a starting salary or a base salary. If I make 2 sales, I'll get this much commission, and 3 sales, etc. So hopefully the more sales, the more commission. So it makes sense to me that my sales will generate the commission. In other words, sales will be independent and commission will be dependent. And finally, looking at gasoline prices. Do gasoline prices depend on oil production and imports, or do oil production and imports depend on the gasoline prices? And we might have some opinions going both ways, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the oil production, maybe like in barrels. If I have 20 barrels or 40 barrels or 60 barrels or 80 barrels, what's going to be the price per barrel, which in turn, that's the gasoline prices. So I could even put it $1, $2, $3. But whatever is going on with this production, it's going to drive either going up on the gasoline prices, or it could be that the production drives, or the lack of production could drive the prices down or up, depending on what's going on with the economy. Either way you look at it, the oil production is going to be independent, and the gasoline prices are going to depend on what we're doing with the oil production. Now looking at questions 3 and 4, if you haven't already attempted them, you need to hit pause, answer them, and then come back and let's work on them together. Notice I'm sitting back at question 2, and I'm going to answer question 3 and 4. Because question 3 says, using your answers from question 2, which here's question 2, write down which variables will be placed on the horizontal axes. And so horizontal is going to be independent. So time spent studying is going to go on question 3. The age of a particular car is going to go on question 3. Let's see if I can go grab this one pretty fast. Pharmaceutical representative sales are going to go on question 3. And then oil production is going to go on question 3. For question 4, it's asking, write down which variables will be placed on the vertical axis. And so if we're looking at the vertical axis, vertical being the Y, it's the dependent variable. And that was not well drawn. Now, I don't know what I'm doing here, but somehow we need to know the grade on the test is going to be on the vertical, it's the dependent. The model of a particular car is going to be dependent and go on the Y-axis. And then finally, earned commission is dependent. I want to go with this. Earned commission is dependent, and then gasoline prices are dependent. And that completes our lesson. So you need to look at your syllabus, and if 9C is all you need for this week, then you are done. Upload these to D2L, and I'll see you again next week on another video. But if this is not your last video, let's go get another one, and I'll see you soon.